Hey guys, welcome to the RoundTable. Here at the RoundTable, we continue the conversations that we have had from Sunday morning and how you can have practical ways to help every person take their next steps towards Jesus together. Hey guys, welcome to the RoundTable. This is episode 54, and we have our guest over here. What?
You forgot to introduce yourself.
I did.
You just got done saying, we just got done going through this whole pre-session.
Okay, all right,
She's saying to me, make sure we're not starting over.
No, we have to.
No, we're not. Nick shaking his head.
Please don't. Okay, all right. Well, my name is Jenny Walker, and I am the social media ministry leader here at Life. Who are you?
I'm Michael, lead pastor here at Life Church.
Are you?
I am.
Everyone's forgetting their title.
Well, no, but this is the thing. People said like we never introduce ourselves, so new people coming to the podcast wouldn't know what we did for a living. What we did for a living.
Yeah, or where we are. But you already
where
said
are we?
We're at Life Church.
We don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we want new people. So, I mean, it only makes sense. Like, we're trying to reach out to new people.
Well,
so
if you're tuning in from wherever, welcome.
There you go. See?
Yes, and we have our guest, Hannah, with us today. And I really I struggle with pronouncing it.
What? Pronouncing what?
Her last name.
Did you try to practice before we went on the air?
No.
Here, let's take an opportunity to practice your name.
Is it just Bangma? Okay, all right.
What were you going to say?
I don't know. It could have been Bagma. Or
One time we
had a Bagma.
I don't know.
One time we had someone ask if it was Arabic.
Arabic?
Really?
Interesting.
Bangma?
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Arabic?
I know.
It's Dutch.
That's weird.
Wow.
Oh gosh, if they hear me say that and it's
you got to talk
forgive
loud.
me.
Yeah,
People
you do.
Can't hear you. They just sent in a text saying we can barely hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're a really loud talker, I feel like.
No, I'm not very monotone.
I feel like she's very loud.
No, I know, but we got to make sure.
Yes.
I can see the text going across the screen up there.
Oh, yeah.
People saying,
there's a
Hannah,
ton.
be louder.
Speak up.
I'm very quiet.
Yeah, so Hannah, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, again, you've been coming to church here at Life for how long? Tell us a little bit about your life, what's going on.
I think I've been coming for about 7 years. A lot has happened since then. We have 2 boys. One's almost 5.
How'd you end up at Life?
Yeah.
We moved to Huntington, and I think someone recommended it. And then so we just started coming here, and we stayed.
And who's we?
Eric and I, my husband.
Well, I know, but the viewers don't know.
Hi,
My husband, Eric, and I.
Moved from where?
Fort Wayne.
Oh.
Well, he was in Warren with his parents, and then they moved to Tennessee, and he stayed in Huntington. And then I guess I moved from Fort Wayne to Huntington.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did.
By recommendation. That's how you ended up at Life.
I don't know. It's been some time, so it's hard to remember.
7 years is a
mom
long
brain.
time.
Yeah. A lot has
7 years
happened
very
since
long.
then.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, your family. So you, Eric, kids.
We have Jackson and Everett.
Okay.
And Jackson will be 5 in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
1 week.
Oh, wow.
Oh gosh.
Birthday. Are you having a big birthday party?
I don't know yet. It's kind of hard. I'm like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. So,
Wait, at 5 years old?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like no 5-year-old would really know.
We get him
No 5-year-old
toys.
would pick his birthday party.
I don't know.
I mean,
Well, most of them know, like, what their favorite superhero is. Our kids like to play with like boxes. Like they no, listen, let me say.
Yeah, wait a second.
So,
That's
so
pretty
like you
amazing,
get them
though.
a gift and they play in the box. It's
Yeah,
like
that's how it
they're
always
very
is.
simple.
That's why we shouldn't get them gifts.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Get the kid a box for Christmas.
Yep.
Right. I'm
Wrap
so
it
for
up.
it.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna use the toys and then they like get bored of those and
So
they're like, oh,
he
something.
really doesn't like watch TV or like any.
Well, I homeschool, so I try to keep the screen time down.
Okay.
And like when I'm not, I work for a mental health crisis line. So I do that once like every other week, and then I run my business from home. But we homeschool. We just started last year and went through our first year or semester, whatever, pre-K
Right.
of My Father's World. It's a Christian curriculum.
Okay.
So he's like very, like he loves going to playgrounds. He loves being outside. And that's what I wanted for him. Cause when I was younger, we played outside. Like we weren't in front of a TV all the time.
Is that how you grew up?
Yes.
You played outside.
Yes. I was actually just thinking that the other day. Like I couldn't even imagine growing up in front of everything that the kids do now. Like I was outside from whenever I woke up, which was late, to
Even when you were a kid?
Yes.
When you were a kid, you woke up late.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Summers. Mm-hmm. You wake up at like noon.
I've never been a morning person. One time I kicked my dad because he would. Okay, so Sundays I used to always get grounded for.
Grounded on Sunday.
Yes, because I wouldn't wake up for church and they would have to like come to my room like 20 times. And I remember just one Sunday I was so tired. My dad tried to come and wake me up and take my covers off. So I kicked him. I don't know where I kicked him, but I'm sorry, Dad.
Your dad?
Sorry, Dad. Yeah, but like that's just how it was. I would get grounded because they would be like, one more time, you're getting grounded. But the thing was, I never got grounded. Like they always said I was grounded, and
but didn't stick with it.
Yes,
that's how my mom was. She'd be like, "You're grounded," and then let me play like the next day.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Like, didn't you get your butt paddled?
Yes, and then it just stopped, I guess. I don't know. Like
it didn't work.
No, but when my mom would spank me, she would spank me, and then I would turn around and laugh because it was like
it's always the nice mom.
Yeah, just like little spank, and it was just hilarious. I wanted to make her mad, so I would just laugh and run away. But then she would be like, "Oh, do you want me to get your dad?" And I'm like, "No."
Hey, so imagine this: when we were at Life Church Bluffton, they did a series on parenting. And did I already tell you this story?
No, but did they do something on spanking?
Yeah. And so they talked about, should you spank your kids, blah, blah, blah. Had a baby doll on stage showing you how to paddle your kids.
Are you kidding?
And on the way out, they handed out wooden paddles to everybody going out.
Were they engraved?
I know. Was the logo on there?
Oh, no. But we still have the paddle.
Oh,
and the kids,
my gosh.
Signed it. Like Isaac was the first one to get it, the wooden paddle. Because the whole idea is like to not discipline in anger, don't paddle in anger.
Right,
so a lot of times if you use your hand, it's more in anger instead of saying like,
I got the belt.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's vicious.
Yeah. So instead it's like, here's a paddle, go to your room.
I would rather a paddle scares me.
I know, but sign it.
Why are they
signing it?
Isaac wrote his name with little crying tears.
As a covenant,
oh my gosh.
As a covenant to their dad and mom that they were going to be good or that was going to be used. Is what I see.
Yeah, no, that sucker got used.
Wow. Yeah. That is amazing. That would not happen today.
You would not paddle your kid?
No, I mean, I don't think like they would have a seminar or like a whole little sit down.
Nick, what about that? Can you run that by Corinne? Can we do a whole marriage and parenting series and hand out paddles at the end for how would that go over?
With the Life Church logo engraved.
That's what I'm saying. When it wears off, you need a new one.
Okay, well here's a good question. As a young parent, right? So of young children, if a church did a series on discipline of your children and handed out paddles, how would you take
terrifying.
Would it be like?
That's what I'm saying.
Please don't. Please don't.
So you're saying that as a young parent, that would not go over well?
Not in today's world.
Well, no, like you specifically, like, are you for like spanking or not? Because like this is a big topic with some parents.
What spanking is?
Spanking.
Like whether you do or don't spank?
Yes. Because child abuse, and I mean, it's a big thing in like society.
Meaning that it's like people don't spank anymore?
Right, because child protected services will come in. And
I was raised like, you don't do that. Like if you do, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I would say our style is more so like showing them why things are bad and we don't want them to get in trouble later on in life. So more so like talking to them about it.
Okay.
I don't think that's as effective in our house than it is like to put them in the timeout and have the other one be playing with the toys while the other one's like, or like sitting on the stairs away from us. So I've found that that's more effective. Not to say that I'm for or against it, but I've found in our life that it just works better to
just like have a conversation with them. Yeah, but I feel like just in society, like people are like so, I don't know if it's just today, like people are so like, how people get about certain things. Like that's one of them.
So paddling's one of those things.
Yes.
I feel like it's
spanking.
A lot more controversial nowadays. And people
do you think that has anything to do with like the level of disrespect in our kids today? Because I think there's more, like if you go out and you're with young kids, I mean, I think there is more disrespect for parents than I've ever seen in my life.
I would say as a mom, in what I grew up to now, there's a lot of different forms of parenting. There's more of like the gentle parenting, and I'm for that, but I feel like it's specific to each kid and like their personality, because some kids, spanking is not going to work because they have sensory issues or developmental delay, and so I don't feel like that's effective for them, especially with working with people who have different disabilities. And sometimes you don't know if a kid, has that or doesn't until they're seen or evaluated. And I feel like it really just depends on each household. Like I'm not a judgy mom. Like I let other moms do what they want. And I, I'm still learning my kids as they grow. So I'm finding different ways are more effective. Like I think that putting your kid in front of an iPad and having them do screen time, I think that is taking away their attention from you. So they're going to be less likely to listen to you. So like, we are not like for or against it or judge anyone else for doing that. It's more so like, if our son does, I want to be sure that his mind can be free afterwards. Cause sometimes he's like not cooperative, and is just like angry at me for taking it away. And I'm like, okay, well, like if you're going to act like that, well, we're just not going to do it anymore. So he really has to like work for it.
Like a conversation with them. I think that's good though. Cause then
so we have a timeout chair and it makes him more mad. I mean, if I swatted him on the butt or if I said, go sit in timeout while my youngest is playing with the toy he wants, that's more effective. And I'm not really like, I'm not really for like, hitting. Yeah. So, I know every parent is different.
What's the age difference between them?
2 and 4.
Okay, well that makes sense because then they'll definitely be like jealous of one another if one's playing.
So I think it's way more effective to say, okay, go sit in the chair, and he's like playing with the toy he had, and it's like so angry just because like he can't be down and playing with his brother.
Well, go ahead.
What are you gonna say? I want to know why she chose homeschooling.
Well, no. So here, I want to bring up. So let's stay on controversial issues.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, and so
you like the controversial.
No,
issues.
I know, and we got a mom we can get, and a future mom.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not like you're pregnant.
I mean, no, don't put that out there. Unless it's another Jesus coming back. Then
Hashtag Jenny is not pregnant. For those asking,
I've always had 2 questions because again, let's form it around back to when we were just having this conversation with the Patmores this week. So Sarah and I went over to the Patmores maybe Thursday night or something like that. And Don was talking about when he first came to Life Church. So when he first came to Life Church is when we were doing original design or beautiful design, which was God designed marriage in this way. And if we operate out of this way, so the role of a woman, the role of a man in God's eyes, like the biblical view of what it's supposed to be. And that's very controversial to this day.
Yeah. Let's talk
about whole idea, huh?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole idea, like the man's role, just to break it down from the standpoint, not just spiritual leader and helpmate and all of that stuff, but like it's a man's role to provide and it's the wife's role to take care of her kids.
Right.
Like that's what's supposed to happen. And in that the man is supposed to provide every opportunity for his wife to stay home to raise her children, and part of a woman's role is to raise the children, right? So that's part of the controversial issue is because I bring this up all the time and ask this question, and I don't know, again, I think there's a lot of responses to it, but I'd love to hear both of your response. Is it the mom's responsibility? So forget everything else. So forget whether money's an issue, forget what your personality is. Is it their mom's responsibility to raise her children or send them to daycare? And let somebody else raise their children?
So I would say for me personally, because our marriage and our lifestyle isn't the same as everyone else's, but my mom and dad got divorced when I was young. And I had a stepmom who was a huge blessing. And became a big part of our lives when we were younger. Like she made sure like we had all of our food. And if we were going to mom's house, she's like, you're going to eat. And my dad worked second shift and third a lot because he worked at the hospital. So we were with her until we went to my mom's house. And my mom was very independent, like provide for yourself, always have like, a way to support yourself if you need to. So she always raised me to be independent. So like when I was very young, I started working like full-time hours. I would say I was a sophomore and I was working at a pizza place, but I bought my own car. I paid for my own cell phone. I was in a bad relationship in high school. And I was like, you know, for like a spiritual battle, like my faith was important to me then. And the relationship was not like supporting that. And I really struggled with it because, you know, when you're with someone and you're young, you love them, you know? So as Eric and I got together, he did all the things. He paid for the meals. He opened the doors, and I was like, "What is this?
That boy.
What is this? Like, you know, because I was always used to like paying for my own and stuff, and he's he's very great. So I would say like because I was out of high school an EMT firefighter, so I was like doing that and working my job. And, you know, he had a full-time job and we weren't married yet or engaged. So like we were always doing our own things, but he always made sure I was taken care of. Mm-hmm. And then we got married in 2015 and moved out to almost Warren, Indiana. And so I went from like a housing addition to like land in front of a cemetery. And I was like in front of a cemetery too. Oh, wow. I was like, oh gosh, this is so scary. So you know, I had like both views on my parents. Like my dad provided for my stepmom, and my mom learned or taught me, like we lived together as I was like, you know, getting more towards like 17, 18. And I did like the mowing for her and like taking out the trash, but she supported me. Like both parents and both sides were supportive, but like I got to the point where I moved to Fort Wayne because I wanted to do the EMT class at Anthus. It's a vocational. So I would do all that for her, and then like I'd work and she'd go to work. We kind of worked opposite hours. Oh, I gotta take a drink. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, I know. I get that.
Did your mouth dry?
Yes, all the time.
So long story short, like I had both positions, you know, because like I saw how my stepmom provided for us while my dad worked, and then like my mom kind of did both things when we were with her. So she functioned as my dad and my mom. Like when we were at her house, like I love both my parents very, very much. And my stepmom passed of cancer in 2016. Wow. And my grandma, who were like two really great, brilliant women in my life. And like they loved each other too. It's my mom's mom and my stepmom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we do like, you know, family Christmases and Easters together.
Oh, wow.
And so like we've always had like a really awesome family. And lots of mixed family, but we never really did step. We were all family. So going back to like the core of marriage, so Eric and I moved out there, and I was still working full time. Yeah. And then we talked, you know, we got married and then talked about having kids. And then so I had my first, and I was working at Pathfinders in Huntington. So I wanted to still work. Like it was always in me to still work. Like I needed to for my mental health. Yeah. And then so I had him, and then he was about a year and a half, and I started going to, so like I stayed home. I mean, he was at the sitter, but it was like a close friend. It wasn't like someone who ran a daycare. Like he was at a friend's house who only had one other kid. Or like a few others, and then I would work, and then we'd come home. Like I didn't have all these other things on my plate. So then I was like, oh, something in me sparked, and I was like, I want to do something else. So he was about a year and a half, and I started going to HU. So I wanted to go for nursing, and that was like 2018 to 19, because you know, like the winter semester goes into the new year. Yeah. So we prayed and prayed and prayed about it because we were married. So like the financial side of things, you know, like when you're single, like they provide more things. So we got approved for some financial aid, and I was like, I know this is a big commitment, like financially, but I knew I wanted to be a nurse. And then something hit, and I got pregnant with Everett. And I was like, you know what, God, like if this is your will, this is fine. So back up a few years, I was home with Jax, our oldest, and then I was still working at Pathfinders while I was pregnant. And then Kim, who goes here, was our realtor, and we were like looking at different houses. So I was 8-9 months pregnant, and we were looking for a new house while I was like fresh out of school. Yeah. And then we moved to Fort Wayne. And I would say probably when I was like 7 or 8 months pregnant with Everett, I quit.
Wow.
And that's when I transitioned into a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Was that a conversation? I always wondered, like, do you just come home or like, do you start dating? Like, I know it was different in yours, but like, would you just start dating and be like, are you okay with me being a stay-at-home mom?
Well, when we were first like pregnant with Jax, it was hard to think about that because we weren't like
financially there.
I don't know if we weren't financially there. It was just really hard for me to think that I may not be working.
Yeah.
Because that was hard for me.
I guess that's my biggest question. So my biggest question is if that's what I'd hear. And I'm assuming that's going to be your answer too, Jenny. Like, so
Yes
when you
and
have
no.
kids.
Yes and no.
Well,
Meaning?
to be honest, when you become a full-time stay-at-home mom, you lose who you are.
Really?
My mental health went south.
Yeah, that's scary.
Because postpartum is a big thing and nobody talks about it.
That's true.
So I do 8 billion things and I've done so much in my life, but I actually want to become a life coach or like a health coach. And I have the classes to take. It's kind of at your own time, but I would like to help moms with postpartum depression and like taking care of their kids. I've also considered like dualing, where you like go and help moms like what they want and educate them. But mine, to answer your question, is more so I didn't want to stop working because I knew I would lose a sense of who I was.
Right.
Eric is always supportive of what I want. He's a very loving and supporting husband. He's like, whatever's going to make you happy because like you're going to be the one who like, because, I made the doctor's decisions. I made the doctor's appointments because he works the full day hours. You know what I mean? Like he can't just like get off and go to a doctor's appointment with me. So if it was like, are we doing shots? Like it was me deciding that. If we doing like, our oldest had a, murmur and that was really hard to hear that he had a hole in his heart. And I was like, I need you to take off and like, go to this with me. This is a big thing. And it was really hard to hear. Cause like, he had good health and it was nerve wracking to me, but like, I realized I was in that role, but when he's home, he's a big part of their life. Like as soon as he comes home, he is making dinner or he's playing with them or reading books. Like they're on his lap as soon as he gets home. And he's always been that way. I think with a lot of marriages now, it's not always the woman who stays home. And I know you're very traditional. I've listened to you talk about you and Sherry a long time.
Well, wait a second.
knows your
Wait a
answer.
second. I want to make sure that this is clear because it's really not that I'm traditional. I would say it's biblical.
Biblical, yes.
I would say it's not a tradition thing. I think it's a God. And again, this would go clear back to the
right.
You want to talk about a controversial podcast? We're about ready to get into it.
That's fine. Let's do it.
Do it.
No,
Let's
I'm
do
just
it.
saying. So biblically,
Right.
the role of a man is not to stay home with the kids.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
So if you're going to live out biblically what a man is designed to do, it was not to stay home and raise the kids. And again, it's the way we're made. Like, again, God did not design men. Part of our design was not to be the nurturer and caretaker. I mean, that's just not biblically the way that he designed it. And I know when we did the original design series, tons of people were like, you've just set women back 30 years in history, 40 years.
But that's not your
and
intention.
No,
yeah.
it's not at all. All I'm trying to say is that, and again, I'm not, and I think people will know me. I mean, I'm not mad at anybody that makes any decision. I'm just saying, if we get outside of the design, which was what God's role of a man and the role of a woman and how it was put together, because I always ask the question, is part of the problem with our kids today is that somebody else is raising them? I mean, you asked the question about homeschooling.
Well,
like, think about this for a
think
second.
about this. Okay. There are more, I don't know statistically speaking, but from personal experience, I know more single moms than I do married moms.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to play both sides for their kids. They don't have a choice.
No.
biblically.
And again, I would agree
Right.
with you. This goes back to,
I
there's
mean,
all
I
kinds of
would love for
circumstances
all of my friends to find a man to love them and provide for them and their kids, but it's just not the case.
Right. And so that's even a whole nother subject.
Yeah, that
what
sucks.
went wrong in all of these cases that men are abandoning their wives.
Well, and it's not only men. Let's make that clear. So if anyone is listening, like we're not saying it's just the men.
Not just the men. But
It's both. But I agree with you. But I, I have been provided by for both of my parents, and I'm thankful for that. And I know not a lot of kids have that. So maybe that's where the brokenness comes from, is the foundation of your home.
Yeah. Well,
oh, absolutely.
So here's another question for both of you. So after Sherry died, I made a decision like early on, that I'm going to get married again. Like I wasn't going to get married. Like that was the whole thing leading up to, when Sherry was sick, like I'm never going to get remarried again. I had everything I wanted, but after she was gone, I mean, something shifted inside of me, which was, you guys have heard me talk about it.
Well, you were together for so long.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So it was just like, I don't know, but this is weird. I have these feelings. When the process of talking to people about this whole idea, the fascinating thing to me was just that how many people said there are not very many good men out there. Like you're saying, hey, I wish I could, like for all of these single moms that you're talking about, they're like, so where are all the men? Like, why aren't there a bunch of godly men ready to?
That's what I'm saying.
To jump in and do these things. Like, I get it that it's not not just man, not just woman. But at the end of the day, I do see a lot of this women trying to get it right.
Right.
Or trying to get their kids. Where are all the good guys? Like, that's what I keep
I don't know.
back to.
I think obviously there are still good men out there. It's just, I feel like
where are they?
Maybe they've been gaslighted or whatever the lingo is for it now. Maybe.
What does that mean?
Gaslighting means, it's essentially just like a narcissistic kind of behavior. Just like, I've
never heard of this before.
I feel like maybe they feel about women the same way women feel about men. So they just don't come out. And when they do, if they get burned, they stay put. Like, because I think.
I see what you're saying, but that's like that's making them so sensitive. Like, come on. Like,
who's sensitive?
Men. Like, if we're saying that, like, yes, like women can gaslight and be narcissistic to men. But come on, like, that's your child. Like, where are you?
Well,
that's what I
was saying more of like the dating world, because that's where Mike was
I'm
headed
trying to
with
figure
it.
out. So for you, we've talked about this 1,000 times. How is there not a godly man ready to sweep you off your feet?
Right.
Where are they?
That's what I've been saying.
No, that was what.
Well, that's why I'm raising my kids the way I am. You want to talk about homeschooling. You want to talk about morals. You want to talk about screen time. I think it all plays.
Oh, absolutely.
And how you talk about, Mike, that if we're not raising our kids, like you say, they went to church. They were raised Christian, but people are so burnt out by the term Christian and religion that more kids, I think, are being like, they're pushed away. Like, if there's a way to raise your kids in a church versus just saying, no, you're going to church, you're gonna do this. Because at a certain point, they have to be able to choose. Like, and I believe, like, with our kids, we're instilling how, like, our foundation in them in a young age, and they know who Jesus is.
And you're doing it at home. Like, a lot of these parents are saying, like, let's go to church. They're not taking it home with them.
No,
like,
but that's the difference. I mean, Hannah, I think what you're saying is exactly what we're trying to figure out is that part of the problem in culture, right, is that, and again, so when I say these things, make sure that nobody hear me say that women don't struggle with postpartum depression and staying at home with kids is not like extreme. I mean, I
just want to tell you, being a stay-at-home mom is not glorious. We don't sit on our butts and do nothing all day. Let's just, not saying to you, I'm just saying, like, I feel like most people are like, well, what do you do all day? And it's like, what am I not doing? I'm teaching my kids how to love. I'm teaching my kids how to respond in a real life situation. I'm teaching them how to become themselves by letting them play or be outside or read, and like, it helps them. Like, my 2-year-old can talk just as clearly as my 5-year-old.
Yeah, but Hannah, think about this. I mean, and this is guy and girl, so husband and wife is that, and because I hear what you're saying in the standpoint of a stay-at-home mom struggles with the idea of finding her identity. Well, back to biblically, we find our identity in the legacy that we will leave. Like, our identity is to be found in the legacy, and the legacy we leave is relational, right? And so the legacy, whether it's Nick and I as fathers, and we work all day and we come home, we're teaching a concept, a legacy. We're leaving a legacy with our children on what it looks like. And moms being on, like, what we should find our identity in, because, and Nick, maybe you can weigh in on this too, but part of the struggle with men is they find their identity in work. Right?
And then they struggle.
Yeah. And then they struggle finding their identity and how they can train their children. Would that be fair to say, Nick?
Oh, I totally agree with that.
that you agree that men struggle finding their identity in.
I think they get married to their work and then
Right.
they come home and the wife and children are so excited to see them, but they're burnt out at the end of the day.
Right. Right. But that would be the whole, like, so back to the biblical part of it is that our identity, like, again, it's easy to find your identity in work. It's easy to find your identity being an EMT or being a social media director. But what's going to last in the end has to be the legacy of our children. And it not whether or not they do or don't accept Christ. That's not our role. Like, they will make their own decisions. But what you're doing is you're not asking your kids to go to church. What you're teaching them or instilling them is Jesus. And the natural flow of Jesus is to be with other people who love Jesus, right? So you're instilling it as a cultural narrative on how they live their life. Well, that's not the cultural narrative that you were talking about.
Right.
The cultural narrative you're talking about is both parents are working. They go to work, they get home, they feed their kids, they put them in bed, they might read them a Bible study, might tell them a prayer, and then they have to get them up on, they're running a ragged life, and then they're saying, let me add one more thing to your ragged life. Get up and go to church on a Sunday.
Right.
And I think that was like what our life was when we were younger. Like, my dad worked, the second or third shift, and then my mom was a stay-at-home mom with us, and then it would come Sunday and we'd go to my grandma's church, and it was such a rush. Like, and where's the calm in that? You know what I mean? Like, not to say I didn't love it, because we went to vacation Bible school. We went to church on Sundays. It was nice, but like, to think of how clustered that was, like, and you're like, I couldn't wake up. Like, you were probably so tired from everything else. And like, there's so many things about staying at home. Like, where we live now, it's basically me and my kids in four walls. And I was really miserable when the quarantine happened, whatever. And like, lost a part of myself. It has taken the last 2 years seeing a therapist and seeing like a health coach who have reminded me through Christ, my worth is still there, and I can't lose it in my kids, but my kids need me. But there's so much of the part of me that they need that I can't give myself to them unless I take care of myself first.
Right.
And that can look a lot of different ways.
Sure.
But I think with my marriage and our foundation and our four walls, that, being home with them has been a struggle, but it's also made me be able to develop into who I am, because, I still work from home. I'm still doing something, but I'm still relating to people through Christ, because it's a Christian mental health service I work for.
Yeah, and the issue isn't, and I hope nobody takes it this way, I'm not against women working.
Right.
My issue is that essentially from a Proverbs 31 standpoint and from a biblical standpoint is that a woman's responsibility is to be the helper, right? So you have to be available to help your husband. Right?
Well, we did the marriage group with Eric and Jennifer, and it said, we talked about being the servant and submitting to your husband. And a lot of women are intimidated by that word. But when Eric and I talked about it, we were like, okay, so how do we look at this? But it's not necessarily submitting, like, bowing down. It's more so like, hey, we're in this together. How can we work through this together? I make sure the kids are up in the morning. I make sure they're fed, and I take care of their homeschool curriculum. So I do the work during the day. When Eric comes home, if I haven't made dinner yet, he picks up everything and starts cooking. I hate cooking. Let's just put that out there. I hate it. But he's much better than me. It's like, if I don't have it like written down and prepped, it's much harder for me to focus on that, because homeschooling can look one way or the other. And then I'm also working, or I'm talking to people for my business, but I have to take them to the sitter now for that, because I've done the service. They're to the ages where I know that they're okay. If something happens, they can let me know, right? So I don't feel bad about taking them to the sitter, because I've done my time with them where I've known their development is good. I know their dad reading to them has taught them vocabulary. So if something went wrong, I would know. Because with them being a baby, I think it's a lot harder, but now I don't feel as guilty, because say they go to our babysitter on Tuesdays, I know like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're mine again. Because when I drop them off, I hate doing it, but then I can give myself time. Like, we're sitting here right now, like there'd be no way. I know that I've done good. on those days, even the days I feel guilty. But long story short, they're provided for, or I have loving family that will watch them if I need to. But it's always me. And I'm okay with that because I want to make sure that my kids are safe and they're taken care of. I know that not everyone has that opportunity or that blessing because Eric works and he provides, he puts the work in, and he comes home, but he is still a servant when he comes home, right? When he walks in that door.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but when you say like not everybody has that opportunity, again, we get it for divorced families. Like we're talking about a traditional family, because again, you're right. In a divorced family, when a mom's trying to be both mom and dad, to be able to try to get that done, first of all, is ridiculous and crazy. And I pray every day for those circumstances.
I don't know how they do it because I wouldn't be able to do it without my husband. Right, Single moms are...
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
They are so powerful.
But with this, that right there is like, but you're blessed. You're saying I'm blessed and I have the opportunity. But again, isn't it more about responsibility than it is blessing? Shouldn't every wife have the opportunity to raise her children?
Yes.
But you're saying like it's a blessing, and
because I know that some moms can't. They still have to be full-time working and provide for their homes.
Because there's not a man.
No, I'm saying forget them. I'm saying if there's two parents in the home, why is it that a mom has to work?
I don't know. That's based upon their individual marriage. I don't have the answer for you.
No. I'm not. I guess I'm not looking for this.
I think some of it is, the income, and having a second income is more maybe like a cushion. Maybe the moms are like me and it's hard for them to stop working. Honestly, when I was working even part-time, I would be more organized and a better mom than I am right now. And that can shock you. You can open your mouth. Drop your jaw.
You can open your mouth.
You can drop your jaw, whatever.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead. Gosh. She looked at me and was like, you can open your mouth now.
You can drop that jaw. Like, I was more organized than I am right now. Like, my schedule book is my brain. Like, I was like, I don't have to do the podcast till Tuesday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Memorial Day. That's tomorrow.
Yeah, but he's, again... Maybe I'm missing the point. It's not about organized. It's not about... I know. My question is down deep. And this is, I think, the part that I think is controversial. If a woman chooses to have somebody else raise her kids, okay?
Yeah.
Is she choosing her identity and her work and money over the responsibility that God's given?
I mean...
Yes.
Jenny,
absolutely.
And again, this isn't to point fingers. I'm just asking the question. When you're saying... Well,
then you need to ask real moms.
I am asking one.
I would say for me personally, and I can't answer for everyone else because I'm not a political person. I'm not a statistic
But this isn't political, right?
No, it's not. I'm just saying, like, I can't answer that for everyone. I do believe, yes, I know what's in the Bible.
Okay, hold on that. Nick, are you ready? So just so I don't get all the hate mail from the women. Okay, so if men choose to work hours beyond the expectation and not be home and present for their wife and their children, is the husband choosing money and identity over their wife and children?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And see, that's easy to answer.
Right.
There's not one woman that won't look at a man and chastise the crap out of him for working too much and not being home and not being present. But nobody wants to say anything to the women who are going out and working.
Right. It's the same thing.
Well, again, it's not in the eyes of culture.
But culture sucks. Seriously.
In society's opinion, sucks.
Right.
Yeah, and again,
mental health sucks. And to be honest with you, with quote unquote today's world, because we're just going to put that out there. I think mental health in women and women being empowered is a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was raised. Does
that mean she's getting ready to drop the bomb?
No,
she's like,
no,
you can open your mouth now.
like my dad worked and my stepmom stayed home, and my mom worked and provided for us because it was what she did, you know, like that's how we were. And she just was like, hey, I want you to be prepared. Like if something were to happen to your husband, be prepared to have something to fall back on. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
No, not at all.
And that's what she had to do. And you're asking me a big question.
No, but he's asking you the difference of like somebody being in a relationship, like married.
Right.
Listen, here's what I want to make sure before we get all the hate mail. Listen, every individual family structure is different and how they prepare.
Right.
I'm going back, strip it all away.
Mm-hmm.
Does God, from the perspective of what he asks of us, right, and the things that he would call us to do, when Nick stands in front of Jesus, right, Nick will be accountable first for his wife, his own life, and then his wife. That's his responsibility. When he stands in front of Jesus, he has to answer the question.
Not to put you on the spot here, Nick.
No, Nick's heard me say it 1,000 times.
I've heard this.
Right.
Yeah, Nick's heard this 1,000 times. But when he stands there,
right,
he has to answer the question, what did he do as the role that he was given, as the leader of his home, as the one to provide opportunities, to give his wife? Like, he has to answer for those things. And so Nick can give every excuse in the world why he doesn't, but it doesn't change that he's got to be held accountable for it.
Right.
And all I'm trying to do is just strip it down and say, right or wrong, the point just is, I think we need to say it for what it is. So if Nick is doing that, and not saying Nick is, so everybody that's listening, just looking at Nick right now.
Right.
But if that's happening, stripped down, then Nick just has to admit what he's choosing.
Yeah.
Nick is choosing work and money over his wife and kids.
Like when you put it down like that, yeah.
I'm just saying, and because Nick can change his lifestyle.
Right. Absolutely.
Not everybody has to have. I mean, look at most families today. I would say most families can cut some things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like most families.
Yeah.
Or I just
So when you put it in that perspective, it makes it sound better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
I'm not trying
And
to.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, just
And
like
I'm not
a woman.
saying the world is right, because ever since I've started going to the church, you say the world was broken, not meant to be fixed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
never applied to me more. Or like made sense to me more. I can't answer for the world.
Right.
In my life, I'm serving my kids first. They come first in my life. And I want to raise them with that foundation. And I want them to be good husbands to their wives.
Right. Well,
Right.
that's
So,
what,
yeah,
and,
so you
yeah.
should
So
be
my
doing.
point would just be is that I've always said this, and I even say this about myself. Until you're honest with yourself through the lens of Scripture, you're never going to make any changes. And so part of our problem today is nobody wants to have this honest conversation. Like nobody wants to sit across the table and say, somebody else is raising your children and you wonder what's wrong. You see them for 2 hours a day and you wonder why they don't love Jesus, or you wonder why they don't listen, or you wonder why they're not instilled with the value system you want, because they're getting somebody else's value. I'll go back to homeschooling.
Yeah.
Like we tried to homeschool our kids. So when our kids got into, Isaac was in elementary, and when Brady was going into middle school, one, because Brady was an absolute crazy person. And so we were worried about him going there. And then the other part was ministry is somewhat of a second shift job. So part of the problem was
I would say it's a
being
24/7
being
job.
gone at night, to be with people, and my kids would get home from school and I would never see them.
Yeah.
So we had a choice. These are big choices. I mean, you just don't pull your kids out of school and it's not a big choice.
Yeah.
Like, we had to sit down and make a decision, and the decision was we're going to pull them out. And the reason we're going to pull them out, not necessarily even so much that school was terrible, but we felt like it was important for them to know their father and be with their father and do the types of things. So we made hard decisions to be able to do it. But we had to be honest and just flat out say, like, this is the reality of our life today. And I'm not able to be present in my kid's life. So I either have to give up doing ministry or we have to pull our kids out of school. Because again, whether they're in school, not in school, because you can hear all of the critics about homeschoolers.
Yeah.
You hear everybody
That's
there's tons of
everything.
critics.
I think it's easier to start homeschooling and then maybe go into the public school system. I went to public school. I have nothing against. I don't have it. I went to Huntington North, but I wanted to go back to Fort Wayne because that's where I was raised. And there was a lot more controversy in Fort Wayne, and that's what I was used to. And my dad swears up and down. I said, Huntington North, they come to school in their Wrangler jeans and on their tractors, and I don't want this for my life, but I don't remember that. No offense, Mike.
Wow. Judas. Yeah, are you one of the Homestead kids that drive up? And that was the whole deal when Homestead played Huntington North.
Yeah.
They came in the Escalades and we drove in the tractors.
Can we just talk about a really funny story about that?
I went
really
to
quick?
Elmhurst.
Yeah.
No, it's really great.
Okay,
Okay, so
here we go.
all right,
Because you're from Fort Wayne?
No, but I was a cheerleader for Huntington North, and one day it was like a Friday night or Friday day. Okay, well, actually, this is kind of deep, but not really. So my grandma had just passed away that day, and
This is a funny story?
well, it's supposed to be. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay,
because
got
I
it.
keep talking,
Yeah,
I'm
my
like,
grandma
whatever.
died.
But, okay, so
That's funny.
No, my grandma passed away, and then
Okay.
I went to school that day, and I shouldn't have. Like, that was dumb.
Well, some people deal with things differently, so
Right.
it may have made it easier.
Right. But then somebody asked me if I was okay. And if any, like somebody close to me, and if some of that happens, I'll just like lose it. And I did. And then I left, and one of my friends left with me. And since it was a school day, or I mean, a game day, we were wearing our uniforms. And we went to pick up my cousin because she went to school too. And we were like, well, why don't we just go to Huntington North and walk into their school? Because it was kind of like, I think towards the end of the day. And when we got up there, it was going to be like right before their bell went off. So we did that. We drove up there in our uniforms, walked in right when the bell went off. So, because that was the game day when we were competing against each other.
And then what school did you go to?
Huntington North.
So why did you walk into where you were taking
To
the day off
Homestead?
from?
You walked
Homestead.
into
You said
Homestead.
Huntington North.
Did I? My bad.
Yes.
Okay, so I left.
So she went in uniform to Homestead.
To
from Huntington
So I
Homestead.
left Huntington North and went to Homestead
Okay.
in my uniform, and then the bell went off, and so all of like the players like gathered around us, and we were like arguing back and forth, and we were
Yes.
because I'm very like I'm not a person like the physical fighter, but
Well,
I am.
she hit me before the podcast.
That's very
by the
true.
way.
But did it
Yeah.
hurt?
No, it
Exactly.
didn't hurt.
Mike
but
actually
More
cried.
verbally. So we were like not cat talking, but we were like arguing back and forth, and then we ended up getting in trouble. And yeah, but it was just
Wow.
so crazy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like it was like. Because it wasn't like it's not a big deal now, but like in the moment, like, oh my gosh, like you're coming in here and telling us that we're gonna lose, and like
Yeah.
to the players, but yeah,
That's cool.
I know.
Let's,
Where were we going with me going to Elmhurst?
I don't know. But
no, but let's talk about this because I think this goes back to like what we talked about on Sunday. So the idea of, part of the reason that I bring this up is because I think it goes well with what we talked about. So that we're in Revelation again. So if you guys are listening that are new, we're going through the series, going through the book
15th
of
week. This week will be the 15th.
15th, 16th.
oh wow, I didn't even know
We've
that.
been going on a long
I
time.
pay
Yeah, we have.
attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but either way, we've been going along. So we looked at the whole idea of spiritual warfare this week, and we talked about the idea of the demonic having effect on the spiritual realm,
Oh yeah.
or the demonic having an effect on the physical realm.
Yeah.
Like they can actually do things that affect the physical realm, and that we need to
Right.
know the enemy. We need to be on guard because these things happen all the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
talked to you guys about, on Sunday, some of my own experiences. We see
Right.
it in scripture, you
Mm-hmm.
see it happening inside of scripture. And I know I'm not the only person that experiences spiritual warfare, that there's an enemy out there doing it all the time. So the question
Mm-hmm.
back to whether it's our children, husband, wife, everything, our family unit. So
Mhm.
here's what I think we know. And maybe we don't. So we'll just see if this is true. I
Okay.
mean, wouldn't you think that the number one goal of Satan would be to
destroy your husband and wife and
Yeah,
then
the
go for your
family.
kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
destroy the family,
100%.
keep the family divided, and when the family's divided, then he can divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Right? Like when things are divided
Mhm.
like that. So back to why would we make decisions that we're talking about making? Homeschooling, jobs, staying at home, being a wife. I mean, or even
I was
working and
talking
being a
about
wife.
being a public school versus homeschool. That's where we were.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that, but my point just is making hard decisions. So
Right.
again, everybody that knows me, my kids were homeschooled, my kids went to a public school. I mean, we've had like this isn't so do this or don't do this, do this or don't. The big question is to be the man of God
Mm-hmm.
that he's called husbands to be the woman of God that he's called women to be. As parents together, sometimes it's going to take some really hard decisions,
Of
right?
course,
Some very
yes.
difficult decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so what motivates us to make some hard choices? Because when we're talking about, I'm guessing, like I'm just guessing this, that most what?
I'm just laughing.
No, I would say, well, maybe you,
You know that I'll pop off.
no. Do you think that,
Uh-huh.
back to Hannah said this earlier, would you say most people who make decisions outside of the realm of what God's made them to be? So
Mhm.
if the design is sacrifice. So if a woman
Okay.
makes a decision, because I'm not saying she can't work, But if she makes a decision to work and sacrifices the design, being a helper to her husband and raising her children.
Okay.
Right? Like the things that God designed her.
Well, let me just side note this real quick before you ask her a question, okay? I didn't want someone raising my kids. That's why I didn't put them in a full-time daycare.
Right.
I was okay with doing it like once a week when my first was born. Obviously, the Rona made a difference in me with my youngest because we were in quarantine. So my husband was still able to go to work because most of their stuff was outside, you know? But no, I did not want someone else raising my kids.
Yeah.
Especially now. You know, they go to someone who's very special from our church and she aligns with like what we care about. So that's important because I tell him to be a kind human and love people like Jesus when he goes, like, don't be pushing other kids, you know, whatever. Because if he would see, like, say that we had a sitter and I don't know, they did whatever, like I want him, he's learning, he's watching everyone now. They're both watching everyone's movements. So I struggle a lot with my walk in Christ because, you know, I am like, yeah, let's change. And then I don't do anything about it. And that's what I've struggled with most in my life. But I try to be, it's really hard to be at home with them all day and be a Christian, but not turn into a mom gangster because like sometimes you need to handle it. You know what I mean? And I say that to be funny, but like I try to be like Christ for them, but it's hard because like we are together all the time.
Right.
But the thing is like, I'm like, okay, I say like, I hear Mike's message. I want to make a change, but how am I actually going to do that? Like, how am I going to actually physically see that in my life? Cause I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Get a new Bible study. We don't stick with it. It's cause the busyness of life.
Right.
But no, to answer your question, I did not want someone else raising them in the most important years of their life and them developing opinions or bad habits, whatever it may be. And that's why I don't feel so bad leaving them with who I do now. Cause I know she loves kids and she's been doing it for a long time. And, so I feel like they're at the age now where they can see right from wrong. Right. And I wanted to be with them and knowing homeschool, like I knew what was going in and out cause some things with public schools now that they're teaching, I don't, you know, totally understand, or I think I want them to be more prepared for life. I want them to be able to change a tire, to write a check. I want them to have the traditional skills that we weren't taught in high school, that they're learning from my husband, that he learned from his dad or whatever he did. And I want them to learn those trades, you know? So like, that's why we chose like homeschooling and for me to stay home. Cause there's a point I think in their life where like you said, they get to know other people and they are like, they want to go to the babysitter because they love her. Right. And that's what I want. But I don't want them to love her more than me because I'm their mom. And I feel like if a babysitter, I'm thankful for babysitters or daycares who can raise children and they do love them because obviously you want what's best for your kids. But I want my kids to know who me and their dad are. And that's, I feel like where we're at.
Yeah, well, in home with them.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was trying to get at is so forget like whether you work, don't work, my bigger thing is that I'll bet if you sit down with the majority of parents today and say, okay, Jesus is coming back, right? So he comes back, both of you are standing in front of him as parents. You know, most parents, I think, would say, oh my gosh, we've been running the rat race so hard. We've had very little opportunity to have intentional time with our kids or intentional time with our marriage. You know, I mean.
And it's really sad to think about that.
But but the point is, but the majority of them aren't going to change.
Right.
And so we look at it
becomes a habit.
Right. And if you look at it from a spiritual warfare standpoint, part of the thing we need to remember about spiritual warfare is it's not just coming and clubbing you over your head.
No.
It's using what he knows about you to help get inside of you to make decisions about things that won't matter in the end.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what's happening.
Because Jesus isn't going to care about who was the number one player in whatever sport they played. And I feel like families, you know, I have friends who the mom's always running them to sports and then dad comes home and then he runs to the sports, but then they lose each other in that time frame, or like, you know, they have piano lessons or dance or whatever it may be. And they take so much time and they're gone with their kids, but then they lose each other as well.
Yeah.
And that's why like we're like, you know, we'll let him play sports or let them play sports and do what they want because we want to support them, but we also want to collect at the end of the day at the table together and have dinner together and pray together before, because, you know, we sit down together for dinner at night. And that's one thing I really enjoy because my kids have conversations with us. And I think if we were so busy running, like if I have a full schedule during the week, it honestly stresses me out because like I want to be with my kids and my husband, or I want to be with like my family,
right,
or my friends. But, you know, I think that when we get so busy with whatever our life is, I've heard the saying, I don't know if I've heard you say it, maybe possibly, but we're more about being human doings than beings. We can't be. Like we have to be. If we're not busy, we're not happy. And like you're saying, if we're standing in account of Jesus and, well, we just haven't had time to make time for you, like that would be hard, but that's what society in the world today, we're always so busy. So that's where we lose each other. Like when we weren't like full-time in here yet, but we had a different pastor marry us, obviously. And he is a gift. He's so sweet. So we got engaged and then married 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
So that's another story, but we're not. But we were together. We were together 5 years before we got married. But long story short, he said, because we had to go through the marriage counseling before he would, you know, and make sure like, okay, well, these two are good. Like, you know, like you do. But he said, at least talk to each other 10 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes about your day at the end of the night. And pray together every night, which we don't do, but we do communicate a lot. Communication is big. If you aren't making that time and you're just running the kids, if you're going to your next meeting, like where is the time for each other? Because you're husband and wife, and that is the union and the vows that you promised each other. And if you're getting so lost in your kids and like your job, like that's where I feel like we were just talking about this the other day, because like, if you're so busy doing so many other like, how do you have time for each other? Like you married each other for a reason, but if you're married to the sports that you're going to, or married to the job that you have, I feel like, you know, it takes away from that time together. And
well, and again, talking about that, I mean, here's the craziest thing, just what you said right there, that we have to tell people who love each other, just take 10 minutes to talk to each other, shows that we have an epidemic problem, right? Because Nick and I's role, your role, Jenny, your role someday will be, like, you have to know your husband well enough to know what God's doing in him, help him become the man who's God's created him to be. And if you're only having 10-minute conversations with him, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying, and I'm not saying what the pastor said was wrong. My point is from an epidemic standpoint, like
but that opens the door for that communication.
No,
like,
I know,
how are you really?
But the point is that and I'm not saying what you're saying wrong. My point is, a lot of times it's like this. Jenny, tell me about your day. Well, I had this meeting. I did this meeting. No, I mean, tell me about your life, Jenny. Like, I want to know what's going on.
Full communication. I want the nitty gritty.
Right.
Well, it's sad that you would even have to do that, because, I mean, if you don't know what's going on in your partner's life and your kids, then how are you going to pray for them? And that's where the devil gets in. And that's where things like
if
they
you
get
spend
married.
so much time not knowing each other, you'll have to relearn and redate each other. And that's okay. But how did we get there? You know what I mean?
But I want to be able to be to the point, like, no, I think inside of our marriage relationship, like, you should be best friends. I want to tell you about, I want to tell you about my heart. I want to tell you about my dreams. I want to tell you about what God's saying to me.
It may be silly or whatever, but when I hear him pull in and the kids run out, it makes me so excited that he's home.
That's how it should be. Yeah.
Like,
but my point is, Hannah, don't you think this is true, though? Like, not you in general. Yes. So now we're speaking in bigger terms, is that for the majority of people, number one, we barely find time to sit around a table. So when we agree that today's culture, we barely
go. Yes.
Right, we barely find time to sit around the table to even start a conversation. Right. So to even find out what's going on in your spouse, let alone dating your kids. Like, I've always said this, like, we used to date our kids all the time, all throughout all high school. You know, take our kids, you know, to the best of our ability, as much as we
Right.
did, because once we got 8 of them,
That's a
you
lot.
know, I mean, it was hard to do, but we tried to do it, right? But the
Okay,
idea
there's only
was,
7 days in a week. We're gonna have to have you next Monday.
but again, you got to date them, and the reason you're going to date them is you got to know them. You got to know what God's saying and what's going on inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
We're barely dating our wives, the ones
Yeah.
we're having sex with, for crying out loud. I mean, what in the freaking world is going on? The one that's your lover.
Yeah.
The one
that you vowed to love.
But I'm like, this is my lover. I mean, the person that I am deeply passionate in love with, and
we live in a society of one night stands, so that's
do.
pretty
I
easy.
know,
And that is why I feel like it is so hard to date, because everyone's so burnt out from it that they're not dating to marry anymore. They're dating to, like, I don't know if I like you, you know what I mean? Whereas I, like, in high school, I'm like, am I going to marry him or not? Because if not, like, this isn't really worth it. And then I found Eric, and I'm like, ooh.
but
okay.
once you are married,
Right,
the idea is like,
different.
I mean, you're my lover. Like, you're the person I
He is
love.
no
You're the
doubt
person that I'm
my best
intimate
friend.
with. You're my best friend. You're the one I want to talk
I
about.
just want to say, side note, sorry to my friends if you say don't tell, like, he knows too. That he's my best friend.
But
so,
you know what I mean? So
just
who
kidding.
wouldn't want to be with them? Like, I
Right.
just don't even get that. Like, well, we just couldn't figure out how to date.
my
How can
question-
you not figure out how to date?
I
I
guess
know.
my question would be, where is the miscommunication? Because we're always new versions of ourselves. And I'm learning that with my kids. I've actually been grieving their baby lives, because I'm like getting ready for a garage sale this weekend, and I don't need their clothes. Like, my sister's like, just get rid of them. And I'm like sitting there bawling. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you know. But long story short, I think about it as like my marriage, like my kids. I'm always learning a new version of them, and you would know. And especially taking on another family on your own and loving them, like, that would take a lot. Excuse me. I mean, because, like, I just have 2, and I'm like, wow, you guys are so different, but you're so much alike. But at the same time, when we get married and have kids, we lose ourselves in our kids. Because, you know, they're very important to us. But at the same time, we're losing ourselves because we don't take that time to date. Or we don't take that time to learn the new versions of ourselves we're becoming as well. And I think I'm a communicator. Sorry, honey, but you're not. And we know
Sorry,
this.
honey.
He
Throwing
knows
it out
this, but
there.
I'm like, okay, if we're getting married, we're going to communicate. Like, we go and sit down and we go and talk about this, because I can't let things burn. I just can't. That's a great way to have that resentment. Like, I need to know what's going on in your mind. We need to fix it now, instead of just letting it sit and sit and sit. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if we don't take the time to get to know each other, how are we going to know? Like, I sit here and think, you know, one of these days, my kids are going to be out of the house.
Can I throw something out there?
Yes.
So let's talk about losing yourself, because we're at the end already.
Yeah.
We're an hour into it.
Yeah.
So we got to stay on track here. Not that we're not on track, but talk about losing yourself, like, into your children or even into your husband. So part of the thing that we preach all the time, or the things we need to talk about, is that if you're not losing yourself in Jesus, you won't truly be able to give yourself to your husband or your children.
Right.
Because this is a problem, even in a good way.
Are you talking about, like, idolizing?
No, I'm just saying,
Or-
like, as you said lose yourself. I don't think this is what you meant, but a lot of time we lose ourselves, or our identity is found in our children,
Yes.
or our identity is found in our husband.
Right.
I'm saying you have to lose yourself in Jesus. Your identity is found in him, and you can't ever lose yourself in your kids and or in your husband, because again, if your identity isn't over here in Jesus, where you've lost yourself, what you give to a flawed human being as a husband, or what you give to, and what you expect back
Right.
from flawed kids and a flawed husband. Like, this is a lot of marriage problems. Like, you want something out of your husband, he'll never give
Yeah.
it to you. You want something out of your kids that they're never going to give back to you. And it's part of the reason is we forgot to lose ourselves in the only place we can find true identity.
Yeah.
So that when our kids don't give us what we need,
So
Go to
to
him.
backpedal on that a little bit, when I say you lose your identity in mental health, I believe that if I have said so many times, like to Jennifer, because she and Janelle Smelser, they are 2 foundational people of this church that I love and look up to, because they've always been there for me. Like, when my babies were born, Janelle's like, I want to make stuff. And Jennifer's like, hey, I remember his name and I have it on this little sweet animal blanket for you. And it just meant a lot. And that's That's why. That's my why here.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my community here. You always talk about community.
Yep.
We did the marriage group with Jennifer and Eric. I cleaned with Janelle as a business. Like, they are my people, and they have shown me the love of the church.
Right.
If you want a definition, that's who comes to my mind first. Kim, Rayanne, like, those are some names that I have really appreciated. And they reminded me, like, you don't have to be perfect. You just fall at the feet of Jesus. Like, and I have told them, or anyone I've talked to, how can moms who go through postpartum or whatever not know the love of Jesus and know that we don't have to, I might cry. We don't have to be perfect because Jesus does love us, and he does. We were chosen to be those children's mother. We were chosen to be our husband's wife. And I'm like, how did God like entrust me with these children? Like, I'm blessed. Some days I don't always feel that way, but if I can't fall at the feet of Jesus and find my identity in him, like you're saying, and I forget that a lot, because most of the time my mind just reverts to guilt and the devil, I'm sure, and to resentment of who I was before, or what my identity was as a mom before. But I think what I'm saying and what you're hearing might not be exactly, but like, it's more so I can't get it out. It's like word vomit, but it's like, if I don't have my identity in Jesus and I didn't know his love for me, I would lose it.
Right.
That's where mom's mental health and the suicidal stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Because they feel alone. They don't have support. And I'm not saying that in general, but this is where it could be easy to lose yourself and not confide in Jesus.
Yeah,
because you don't feel worthy.
Yeah.
You haven't taken a shower in 10 days. You don't even know if you brushed your teeth because your kids are taken care of. Like, if you don't lose yourself at the feet of Jesus, he won't be able to remind you that you are loved and you are worthy of love, and you are being run rampant by your kids all day. And then at the end of the day, you just fall apart.
Right. Yeah. And again, I don't have to say necessarily that you're saying it as much as I'm saying part of the epidemic problem in the world is just, I mean, we could just boil it down to this. Satan has convinced us of a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
You'll never have enough time and you never have enough money. So part of his spiritual warfare in our lives today is to make you believe you will never have enough time and you never have enough money.
Or you will never be worthy of his
So
love.
we are running at paces that we were never made to run. You were never made to run at the paces we are, never made to be as busy as what we think that we need to be. But for whatever reason, we're doing it.
It's a need. It's like a necessity. It's like a Coach purse, but literally in actions of our life.
Yeah. I mean, and it was the perfect example. As soon as COVID hit, people were lost because at the end of the day, they didn't know what to do if they didn't have something to do.
But really, why couldn't that have given you time to get, I mean, and I say this to myself too, why couldn't that given us more time to find out who we are and have that time with our family? I took it as something good because, you know, people had to slow down. They had to be at home. They had to work from home. How couldn't that have, I mean, I'm sure it was rough for people, but like, it was nice to have my husband home with us at the beginning of it.
Right. But so that's so this is let's end it with this. And then do we have time for questions, Nick?
I think we have time for a couple.
Yeah. So let's talk about this and remember this, because I think, again, a lot of your insight as a young mother is great inside of this. And I think what we can learn is that here's what we know. We know that from a spiritual warfare standpoint, he's going to do anything to attack the family structure.
Yes.
I mean, that's where he's at. So whether it's through your marriage or whether it's through your children, he's going to do whatever he can to tear apart the family structure, because we know the design can't be like, there are single moms doing a great job and there are single dads doing a great job, but it is not the design. It's not what God made it to be, you know? And so we know that's not the way that it's supposed to be, but Satan knows if he can divide it, then those children will never fully understand what it was like of the design that God had for mom and dad to be together and not share back and forth in those ways. And so be aware. I guess the point for all of us is to remember that if Satan's number one goal is to tear apart the family, and that's the spiritual warfare that's coming, what are you doing to protect it? What are you doing to guard it?
Communicating, talking, finding out what's going on. What are your needs? Not necessarily personal needs, but and we're walking in this every day. Our marriage is not perfect. Our life is not perfect.
Well, join the club. Nobody's.
It's just, I'm just saying, like, a lot of people look at us and are like, well, you know, you guys have a really great relationship. And it's like, yeah, you know, but we still have our struggles, but communicate, talk to each other. If you don't know who each other are now and you're looking for hope, I would say redate each other, talk to each other, pray together, because that's your most vulnerable thing. And then you'll know more, like, you know, because that's my takeaway.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't know each other, take it as an opportunity to be like, look, I'm gonna, and this sounds so funny, don't make fun of me, but drive your 2 separate cars if you have them, or take an Uber, dress up, and go meet them somewhere as your first date all over again.
Wow.
Take that time.
Spice it up.
Either that, or after the kids go to bed, dress up, meet each other downstairs, have a nice dinner together. Like, I mean,
put the kids to bed and pull out the candles.
No, I'm
or the costumes.
That is not what I mean.
Yeah, put the kids to bed. Get the costumes out, baby.
No.
Spice it up.
You are turning that the wrong way. No, I'm saying,
I know,
like,
Hannah. I'm just
get
giving
out
you a
of
hard
the
time.
leggings and the t-shirt because
Just
I'm
giving you a hard
guilty.
time. I'm just giving you a hard
You know, no, like,
or the lingerie. Like, either way.
Right.
Come on, Nick. Support me over there a little bit. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
on
you.
That note, we're done.
The end of the first
No,
date.
honestly, like, just redate each other.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know each other, that's perfect. It's time to get to know them again, you know? All jokes aside.
You can't even look at me with a straight face now. Oh, all right, Nick, let's do questions, and then we'll end up with kind of final comments.
Okay.
We can give.
We've got. We'll do one question.
Okay.
And then this is from Mike. It's from Alex Bope. She said, "I'm very interested in learning more about spiritual warfare. Where do you recommend starting?" She says, "I've done some plans on my Bible app, but I'm looking for more recommendations."
Yeah. So for both of you, before I answer it, have you ever experienced spiritual warfare from a standpoint of?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay, well, tell me one thing. Tell me something. Tell me something.
I mean, addiction in itself is spiritual warfare.
Okay.
I mean, every time I relapsed, like, there was something that was coming in before, like, something good was going to happen.
Okay. Like
what?
No, I mean, you're saying, like, from a standpoint of, how do you feel like it worked for you from a spiritual warfare standpoint? Do you think that it's Satan got into your mind?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think Satan used other people? Do you think both?
Mm-hmm. Mind, especially, because, I mean, he knows us exactly, like, what would make us tick, or what would, like, throw us off.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's my mind, because everything starts in my mind. I'm an overthinker, and especially with people too. I mean, just bringing somebody in that had a negative thing for, like, that I wouldn't do otherwise, that I did with that person.
Okay, so we'll stay on that, and it'll be our final comments, and then I'll answer the question.
Okay.
So if you know it, like, you know spiritual warfare is coming, and you know that Satan gets to, what is your protection? What do you do? What would you say to a viewer? Because my point just is that part of the reason that I wanted to say the stories that I said Sunday is like, this isn't just like, this is
It's
destroying.
not make believe. You want
Like,
people
this
to
is
know that there are
destroying.
real world
This
situations.
like, trying to destroy you.
Yes.
So what are you going to do, or what would you tell our listeners to do the best you can to protect?
Well, I think if we are Christians and are truly Christians, we should always be ready and prepared for it.
Okay.
Because spiritual warfare always happens to people who believe.
Okay.
And especially the ones doing good for Christ. Like, you notice it more. And just being prepared is being aware of the things that could happen. Like,
so being prepared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just really protecting yourself, being in the Word, doing devotions.
Being in community.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So
I
Hannah,
have
same
a
way.
side note. Well, mine is my mental health, because like, I can be doing really well, and then I just lose myself. I've had suicidal thoughts before. I've never actually physically followed them out or tried. But mine is like my anxiety and depression, and it can get real dark. Like, it got really dark with postpartum, and that's why I'm so passionate about helping other moms with it. But mine is like turning on Lauren Daigle or worship music and just worshiping out of it, because I I can't say I've ever read the Bible fully front to back. And I'm working on that in my life and being able to obtain word more. But mine is more like through music and like worshiping, because I really have a hard time focusing on reading. And obviously it's the Bible. Like we should be interested in that. But I do well with studies because I can look more into it, you know? So it's more like I turn on my worship music or whatever, or I pray, but it's not my first thought. And I think, and I definitely know that it's Satan on my shoulder, like, oh no, like you're not worth it. Like these kids have taken you over, whatever, you know, it could be anything. It could be that, or no, you're not worth it. Like your life isn't worth it. Like you're just going to go to hell. There's no point in. That is my biggest thing. Why would I work so hard to get to heaven if Jesus already knows that I'm going to hell? That's always been one of the questions in my life, 100%. And I've even talked to Jennifer about it, and she's like, oh, and like, I still never feel like I'm worthy of going to heaven. And another thing, when I was in like middle school or high school, I went to CDYC, Calvin College in Michigan, and we had this, when you have all these believers, like what you said, and it's like a Christian concert, and then we would like collect at the end of the night. That's where demons are most, I believe, or like Satan is most present, because he's looking for the non-believers who are looking to accept Christ, right? Because that happened a lot there. Well, we had an experience where someone we were there, like they had an actual physical attack. Like we couldn't talk to our youth pastor back then because something had happened. And I won't go into too much detail, but like his voice got real deep and it was not him. And so let's just say he ended accepting Christ and was like, okay, this is real. Like he knew the love for Christ was there, and then something happened and Satan attacked our church or our youth group. And it was a pretty, I got chills thinking about it, but it was a pretty pivotal time in all of our lives. And so, I mean, like, I would say mine mostly is like mental health, because like it's the, I don't want to say it's the voices in my head because I don't actually physically hear voices, but it's the thoughts.
Yeah.
And mental health awareness is huge. And that's why I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate, not even just moms, but other people. I love people and I love community. And I have always been like, even if it's through my business or bringing people joy that way with like memorial things, whatever it may be, I'm always wanting to love people. But I'm like, okay, I know you have made me a people person, but use me.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what that is. Like, I don't know who I want to be when I grow up, and I'm at where I am. But my dad's like, your purpose is you're a mom, and your purpose is just to love those kids. And I know that, but I still feel like there's more for me. And I have that in my body and my soul, and I don't know what it is. So I am just trying to learn that and let go of the voices or the negative thoughts I'm hearing, because I would say that's my biggest demon.
Yeah, good. So, Alex, to answer your question specifically, so over the years, I've done, well, I love to read. Well, according to Jennifer, I love to.
It's always a debate.
I love to listen to books, but no,
Yes.
even before that, I read a lot of books. So all of Jim Cymbala's books. So he was the pastor of the Brooklyn Tabernacle out in New York. In his books, it's I don't want to call them spirit-filled books, but it talks a lot about not only the Holy Spirit, but the demonic, right? Like the idea. And these are like real life stories that would happen through, doing that. Tommy Tinley, books that, again, address spiritual warfare and the things that are going on. And then a lot of Christian fiction, Frank Peretti and some of the other authors that take the idea of spiritual warfare and put it into fiction, but it helps you get a view, like a picture of what is going on. C.S. Lewis, writing the Screw Tape Letters, and again, just getting your mind opened up. Like, I think that's part of the problem is we live in such a closed-minded, practical society, right? Like we live in, well, X equals Y, and if this works, then this has to work. And I just don't think that's the spiritual realm, and I think not only does it open you up to spiritual warfare, it also opens you up to the power of God.
Yeah.
You know, it's both. So if you understand spiritual warfare, if you understand the spiritual realm, then you also understand the power of God. And you understand how he can use you to do extraordinary things that you could never do alone. And so whether it's reading, it's staying in touch with people, communicating with people, sharing your story, you know, back to what we've always said, is like, you need to share your story of how Satan is attacking, but not only how Satan's attacking, but how you've overcome.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
I think that's the thing that we all need to remember is that part of the sharing the stories on Sunday morning wasn't to sensationalize spiritual warfare. Part of it was to say,
This
Satan,
is real
you
and it does
tried
happen.
and you lost. And you tried and you lost, and you tried and you lost, and you tried and you lost. And then these moments, my faith is growing deeper and stronger, and you can keep trying to attack, because I accept that as a reality of my life. The reality of my life is that Satan's going to continue to discourage and do whatever he can.
Well, and you're also the pastor of a church, so you're going to be number one targeted. People are always going to be like, well, you're a pastor, you shouldn't sin normally. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be in that position where he's going to be coming for you for sure. And I 100% believe that.
Yeah. So I would say so Alex, reading, talking, again, opening your mind, whatever you can do to open your mind.
Right.
And again, I have friends that I talk to on a regular basis. When they deal with spiritual warfare, we talk about it. Like, this is what I've seen. You know, it's not like there's a demon around every corner. The point just is, but they are real. Like, and the things that are happening are real.
Right.
And I also want to share the stories of being an overcomer. I want to share the stories of where, you know, God is faithful in the midst of a world that's falling apart and Satan's trying to destroy. But at the end of the day, he can take everything, but he can't take who we are, you know? And so I think for all of our viewers, what we want to land on, and I think this is what we're going to end on today, is just, you have to remember, like, this is real, but just saying it's real and doing nothing about it is ridiculous.
Well, I have a quick question for you before we end.
Okay.
Real fast. My struggle would be, to be honest with everyone, because I'm going to be vulnerable here, is you ever see those people who are like full of Christ and they're very vibrant and you just love them and you're like, gosh, I really wish that I just had that Holy Spirit in me. I've always had such a hard time finding that. And I don't know if it's because I'm just not letting the Holy Spirit in. Like, I mean, I love people and they can see that, but I guess my question to bounce off of Alex is like, how do you get that? How do you open yourself to that? Because I feel like I've always tried. I've seen God move in my life. I've lost 2 people to cancer that I really loved, and they said, either way I win, I get to be with you or I get to be with Jesus. So like you said with Sherry, like, well done, good and faithful. I know that was, I feel in my heart that was said to them. I don't understand how to feel that and to make that move forward, because I'm like, I don't feel anything. Like, I know God is real. I know Jesus is real. You know what I'm saying? So I guess what would be
Jenny?
like the Holy Spirit fire? Is that what?
Yeah,
you
like
mean?
how do you feel him moving? I have felt him moving in my life, but I guess my question would be, how do you become that person? Like, I'm not looking, you know how you just come to church and you see their face and you're like, gosh, they love Jesus so much. And it's just vibrant.
But I don't think that's always the case. I think everybody doubts. So I think, I don't know. I just think I know that, I mean, I'm sure you doubt sometimes. I mean, you've said that you've doubt Jesus, God.
Oh, I've been pissed off.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's, what you're seeing isn't everything that's there. You know what I mean?
And I know that I'm not saying that. I'm just saying more like, how do I get that fire in my soul? Because I just don't feel it burning.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in general, would you give her a general, like, what would you say?
I don't know. That's a hard question.
Because that's where it comes down to. If I tried and tried and tried my whole life and Jesus knows I'm still going to hell, what's the point in trying? And I don't feel that way. It's just sometimes Satan slips in and I'm like, well, yeah, drop the bombs at home, you say the bad words, you thought the thoughts, you're just going to hell. So, I mean, it is like, I feel like I've tried so hard, and that's where anxiety and depression comes in. But how do you get that fire?
Yeah, that's a hard question for me, because one of my biggest things is like overthinking my walk with God.
And then you have people who hear Revelation and they're like, well, gosh, like if I have to be doing this every day, I'm not perfect. And we're not called to be perfect, but it's like, how hard do I have to try? What do I really need to be doing? And I think that's a part of Alex's question as well.
Yeah, I think, again, part of it is that we have to remember that total reliance is more what he's looking for than perfection and or behavior, right? And I think part of our problem is that, I mean, to say that,
Being God of our own
I'll
lives,
just give you an example. Like this is gonna, maybe people aren't gonna come to Life Church. I mean, I was swearing this morning. So if this gives you the like, oh my gosh, if I swear, or if I mess up, that somehow we're tarred, but at the end of the day, we're going to hell. Like I think the point that we have to get to is that I am at a place in my life where what I have learned is I have to be totally reliant on him. And I have to get to this place of, and again, I don't even mind saying this. I'm like, oh, man, you are an idiot. Like you are an idiot. But at the end of the day, this is what I do know. I do know that God loves me. Yeah. And I do know that he cares for me.
It's just like, how do you, like, I notice a lot of times I become God of my life and I don't try to, but that's where the busyness comes in again. And I'm like, okay, how do I become fully reliant on him? Is it opening my Bible app? Is it actually opening my Bible? Like, I
think it's different. I mean, I think it's different for different people. You talked about this. It's different rhythms at different times. Like sometimes I think it's journaling, and sometimes I think it's reading, and sometimes I think it's worshiping, and sometimes I think it's going to small group, and sometimes I think it's being in the woods, and sometimes I think it's driving your car, and sometimes I think it's going on a vacation with somebody. Sometimes I think it's a mission trip. Sometimes I just think it is let's not forget to be present in the moment. Yes. Like, and not worry about what we're not doing, but be present in like the conversation that we were having here. Like I could feel the Spirit a part of what we're doing. Like I know it's going to be hard for people to hear, but I think part of what gets us on fire is having conversations that matter and talking about things and just be present in the moment and know that it's not like I got to go do something to achieve something or I got to go somewhere to get the Spirit. I'm like, it's just everywhere that I am, and I'm going to do everything that I can, whether it's driving, whether it's feeding, whether it's talking to Nick, and just try to be in the moment. I don't want to get caught up in legalism. I think that so much is what kills people's spirit is religion. Like, I got to do this and I got to do it this way. And if I don't do it this way, then God's going to not like me and I can't do it enough. And I feel so terrible. Like, listen, he already knows that I'm terrible. And he already knows that I'm inconsistent. He already knows that I make terrible mistakes. He already knows all these things, but he does know this. There's no doubt I love him. Like, I love him. I mean, and I again, back to your relationship with your husband to be someday. Like, there was no doubt that Sherry could have made a list for you, and my future wife will make a list for you of things that are like, my kids will make a list for you of the things that I'm not that good at and things that I failed in that. But I'll guarantee you that if you ask
she
me
would have known that you loved her.
There's no doubt in any of those mind that they know I would have died for.
I just want to say I'm so proud of you for her passing and then how you've used it through your sermons. Because I went through that with my dad and my stepmom passing, and he loved that woman. Yeah. And she was a big foundation of our life. And I didn't know Sherry. I mean, maybe I'm just kind of to myself, but to watch her service and then to watch, Eric and I have talked like, what would you do? And to watch you preach through all of this and overcome, it's been amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I can't
imagine.
Yeah, I know.
Eric is my best friend.
Yeah. And I think for all of us, I think this is the thing we need to remember. And I think this is the way that we can be overcome by the Spirit is Satan is the accuser, and we need to remember that.
Yes.
And Jesus says there is no condemnation in the Lord. Yeah. So I just say all the time, accuse me all you want. Because again, as a leader of a church, I get accused all the time.
Right.
And I'm like, if I'm not going to take accusations from Satan, I'm sure the heck not going to take them from you, inside of the church. I find my identity in Jesus. He knows I love him, and he knows I make him on.
And at the end of the day, you're only going to account for your sins, not theirs.
Right. So I'm going to be. I'm going to be
because you know what you know. Yeah.
Right.
That's what you need to remember.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to be full.
Well, it's easy for me to tell everyone else.
No, I'm going to be full of the Spirit because of love and not religion.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's going to be. I'm going to be full of the Spirit, not because I was perfect today, didn't sin today, didn't have a bad day, didn't yell at anybody.
Just because you're a person of position in the church doesn't mean that Jesus loves you any more or less than anyone else, and we still have to account. At the end
I
of
think
the day.
that the end of the day, the love and the fullness, just like it is, some of the greatest things that I can remember about growing up, about being married, about my kids. The times that I felt most loved is when I had failed and they loved me regardless. When I was full the most of love, when I felt the fullness was when I had made a mistake and they could still look at me and say, I love you.
And that's what it is like to be a mom. You
Right.
know, you're like, okay, I could have done this, this, and this, and this, but they like you feel like you're falling apart and they just still come back to you and love you at the end of the day. And it's like,
but that's what we're trying to say with
deserve
the
this?
Spirit. Like,
it's just like Jesus and us being the children of Christ. And
Yeah.
I struggle with that too. Like, and I think it's the anxiety and depression. Like
it is. And that's what I'm saying. Like for me,
it's
I know that. I know that he attacks my mind and I know that he tells me those things.
But
so
listening
just be aware of that. Like know that that's not him. So when I have those
Speak
thoughts,
him away.
yes, I'm like, this is not of you. Like
I'm gonna be like, Jenny, I'm having those thoughts
Jenny,
again.
right?
Jenny.
No, you need to call
Jenny's on
Jesus.
speed dial.
Like whenever those thoughts come, say no, that is not of God. Like you have to,
and
it's
I've actually
continuous.
developed that in
Sometimes
the last
like
2
in
years.
recovery, they tell you like you have to start out like every second of the day. Well, the same thing with that because your thoughts you're thinking it every second of the day and it's just continues, but it gets better like as you continue to go on.
Well, and I just think we need to remember back to identity, and let's leave it at this. If you find your true identity in Jesus Christ, you're never going to think too high of yourself or too low of yourself. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, and that's what gets people in trouble. People in leadership positions think too high of themselves, you know, and then all of a sudden somebody's on them or, you know, saying, well, you did this. And I'm like, okay, join the club. I mean, I already know. You don't have to remind me that I'm wrong. You don't have to remind me that I shouldn't
always feel 100% comfortable in church or any type of worship, or if something is prying at you, it means change needs to happen.
Right. So if I'm truly going to walk away and say, I found my identity in Jesus, I'm never going to be too high and I'm never going to be too low. And I'm going to be full of joy, not always happy and not sad, but I am going to be joyful. Like in the midst of it, I can get my joy because of my identity. I can get my joy because at the end of the day, the world throws all kinds of stuff at you, but he can't win.
Right.
You know, and again,
Unless
you can make
you let him,
life difficult, but at the end of the day, we have to land on, you know, joy in the Spirit. So put up our number real quick, Nick.
Yeah.
We're over time, but Jenny, tell people what they need to do.
So here is our number. So you want to get into our texting group. And so this is why it's really important to text podcast because that puts you in our groups because we have 2 right now, which we didn't. But text 260-408-8383. And we want to basically just have a conversation with you, engage with you. We want questions. If you want to be a guest, we want just to talk to you.
Yeah, and we appreciate everybody that's watched on our YouTube channel and left comments. So that's something that can help us a lot. We're thankful to all you guys that have been out there sharing our podcast with other people on social media. So thank you very much for sharing that, putting it a part of the feed, because at the end of the day, you know, the RoundTable Life Church wants to be a part of a movement, you know, and that's what we're really praying for. We're praying for revival. We're praying for a movement. And we believe through special guests like Hannah and the insight that you can bring and the ideas of the perspective of what God's doing and through what we can talk about together, we feel like these are all divine conversations. We think that there are people out there. So not necessarily did this podcast relate with you, but understand that this could relate with someone.
Yeah, it absolutely did.
And so get it out there and share it with other people. Let other people be, because we just believe conversations aren't just conversations. They're divine appointments.
Absolutely.
And we believe by you sharing them and you being a part of it could make the difference in God. People say all the time, I don't know how to be evangelist. Share a post on social media, share this podcast, and allow God to do what only he can do through the words, you know, and through the people that he's using them. So, Hannah, thank you for being our guest. We loved it and enjoyed your time here with us. And again, we'll continue to pray for you and your family as you're going down this road and continue to pray for what you guys are doing. And we thank everybody out there that joined us, whether you're listening or watching online. Thanks, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.